We start with Vivekananda. Vivekananda set the template. He was the first. And in the fame he acquired and the legacy he left behind, there was a template of how to present these teachings in English, what to emphasize, what not to emphasize, and the response to him and the swamis in his lineage that were trained at Belur Math outside Calcutta and still are. The legacy that comes from Ramakrishna and Vivekananda coming here and all the swamis who followed is an important piece of the story, and it goes on to this day. There's several swamis in that lineage who are very popular on the speaking circuit, on YouTube, and this is, now close to 130 years after Vivekananda first came here. So he set the template, and we'll devote time to him and his lineage. And then Yogananda came. There were others who came, Swami Tirtha, other people who came in the early part of the 20th century, didn't stay very long, but left something behind. And then the next truly influential one was Yogananda, who came in 1920 and was the first of the prominent gurus to settle here in America. And that's an important part of the story, the Americanization of it all. And then in the 60s, we had to deal with the Great Depression and World War II. And so some of the teachings persisted during those years. But then in the post-war era, beginning in the late 50s, but especially in the 60s, late 60s through the 70s, my generation of spiritual seekers, there were all these gurus on the scene. The most famous and influential of whom was Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And some of you are familiar with what happened in 1967 and 68 when the Beatles, he became the Beatles guru, and it was a global phenomenon, ended up putting meditation practice into the mainstream. And at the same time, Srila Prabhupada came and introduced the Gaudiya Vaishnavite tradition, that what we think of as the Hare Krishna movement, which was the most Indian and the most on the outer level, the surface level, the most Hindu of the lineages that came here, because they were busy doing kirtan in the streets and everything and establishing a very interesting reputation. But there was, the authentic bhakti tradition introduced to America. And at first it was just for, people on the fringes of in the counterculture. But kirtan as a whole has become part of the American spiritual landscape now with, and it was introduced by them. So we want to look at the overall impact they had. Swami Muktananda came shortly afterward, and as I said, introduced Kashmir Shaivism and the great poet saints of India, and Shaktipat, Kundalini, and all those phenomena and aspects of the teachings that he tended to emphasize. And they all taught different forms of meditation. Yogananda did, they all did. But some taught also, more, some Hatha Yoga, some taught some Bhakti. It was all mixed up. And then at the same time, in the 70s, came a lot of other teachers, some of whom would be very familiar, and some of whom were less known, but still had an impact.